Good afternoon, YouTube. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the 2017 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It is a car that I've actually had the pleasure of driving for the last couple of weeks. So I want to give you a detailed review, talk to you a little bit about things that I really like about the car and the things that I think you will find favorable if you're considering purchasing this car. This car was a surprise to me because as many people who follow my channel know, I have a preference for foreign cars, but I haven't had a chance to drive or own a domestic car in a few years. Let's go and talk to you a little bit about the 2017 Jeep Grand Cherokee. So one of the things that you'll find about the Jeep Grand Cherokee that is actually quite nice is that it is a comfortable riding car. One of the things that I find different than my previous SUV, I had an Audi Q7, is that the Audi Q7 actually drove like a car. This drives more like an SUV, so it doesn't seem as stable when you're going at high speeds, but it is a nice vehicle in the sense that for an SUV, it gets actually pretty good gas mileage. I was quite surprised that in driving this car on a weekly basis, that I really only had to fill up once every 7 or 8 days. It has the auto start-stop function that it has the auto stop start function that when you are stopped at a light or something like that, the engine actually shuts off to save gas. So I've been averaging about somewhere between 15 and 17 miles to the gallon. And the other thing that's really nice about this car is that it uses regular gas. You're not kind of tied to using premium fuel. So I find that the gas mileage on this car is actually phenomenal. The other thing that I find that's really good about it, and again unexpected, is that the cabin, while not quiet, the engine is actually quiet. So you can hear a lot of outside noise and things like that, but the engine is actually pretty quiet, so you don't even know that the engine is running. I think in the past people have complained about the Jeep having problems with the noise of the engine. You could really hear the engine firing. This Jeep actually is really quiet, and as you can see, I'm stopped right now in traffic, but the car itself, the engine is shut off, the air is still on, and it is super quiet. And when it starts, it started, and I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it started up and we're ready to go. And with this car, it starts immediately. As soon as you take your foot off the brake, the car actually starts immediately, which I thought was really good. It is a surprisingly good start-stop function in this car. I've not experienced that in American cars. I've only seen it in some of the European models, and really it's mostly the European cars, the Mercedes, BMW, Audis, that I've driven when I'm overseas in Germany and in England. But it is starting to find its way more and more in cars in the US, and you'll find that the start-stop function really helps to conserve the amount of fuel that you use, especially when you're going in a lot of kind of stop-and-go traffic, when you're doing daily commuting driving. So I find that it is really a lifesaver in many respects. If you are concerned about the price of fuel, especially depending on what area you live in, fuel prices can be quite high. So let me talk to you a little bit more about the visibility from the car. Getting back to the visibility thing, as you noticed, this car is amazing in terms of the kind of the sight lines of the car. If you look at the windows, it has very large windows. It has a panoramic roof, which is amazing. It's a pretty large panoramic roof. Let me open it all the way so you can see what I'm talking about. But it is a pretty large panoramic roof. It goes almost the full length of the car. It when the sunroof opens, it only opens half open, so it opens just the top, this part of the sunroof, which lays on the back of the other one. But in terms of like open sky visibility and night visibility, it is a great car when you're out and you're just trying to look up at the stars, or you're driving around and you're camping, things like that. It is a good vehicle. And then the overall, the 360 visibility is every window. I find I don't have any true blind spots. I can look over my shoulders, I can see out the cars, the back window's large, I can see out the back window, and I really appreciate that in an SUV, because some of the newer styled SUVs, you may have noticed that they have like the squash mirror or squashed window in the back. And I find that with some of the like, you know, the Ranger, not the Range Rover, but some of the Land Rovers have like that really tiny window in the back. Some of the Nissans, like the Nissan Murano and things like that, they have like this really squashed window in the back. And I'm like, well, what are you supposed to do with that? It doesn't give you that kind of full-on visibility. Well, this car, you get great visibility from the back window and the side windows. And I found that I've not had any problems at all when I'm trying to negotiate traffic or change lanes, things like that. So it is a very good car in terms of overall safety when it comes to visibility. So in terms of this being an SUV that is comfortable to drive, I really like the ride height of this car. It's it puts you squarely above most normal size sedans, where you can see the traffic in front of that car and actually in front of the other car, and you feel comfortable riding and secure riding on the road. So if you are, say, give me an example, you're having your teenage children drive, this is a good car for them in the sense that it is kind of big and it is kind of challenging to park. And I'll talk more about the kind of the parking features with this car, but it is a safe car. What I find is that other cars on the road give you a little bit more leeway when you're driving, so they don't like try to cut in your lane like they may do with smaller cars. They don't try to maybe insert themselves in front of you, at least they haven't with me, as they may do with smaller cars, because the consequence of getting into an accident with an SUV is normally you lose. So I think that if you have teenage children in your house and you are thinking about getting a car that they can also drive, this is a good car for them to drive. Again, like I said, the fuel economy is great, but the riding and the driving of this car is quite nice. I also found that while driving this car, I was impressed with the fact that it got a pretty good amount of oomph to the engine, and that's to say that it's not like, you know, supercar quick, but it actually is pretty quick when you're riding on the highway. Like right now I'm going about 55, but if I needed more power, if I push down on the accelerator, you can hear the engine work a little bit harder, but the car actually moves. And that is surprising for a car that is, you know, in a heavier category of cars. So I like it, and I find that it is actually a pleasant car to drive. All right, what I wanted to show you guys about the parking of this car is that it is fairly modern with your rear parking camera. So when I throw it in reverse, I just put it in reverse, you'll see that the rear view camera actually is quite good. It shows you a lot of detail about where you're going, and then I'll show you the mirrors. When I'm going forward, the mirrors actually, when I go forward, the mirrors go back to the normal position. When I put it in reverse, the mirrors actually tilt down. So as soon as I put it in reverse, the mirrors tilt down, and then you can see my camera. So I like the fact that the rear view screen is actually pretty clear. It's not high definition, but it's pretty clear. And the parking sensors for the rear are pretty good. What I don't like about the parking system that they have, just put it back on again. What I don't like about the parking system, and you can turn it off. If you here, you can, this button right here, you can turn that sensor off. But what I don't like about the parking system here is that if you look at the screen, it shows the lines. So if I turn the lines actually turn with the wheel. So I'm turning the wheel, the lines turn with the wheel. What I don't like about it though is that it doesn't show you like your distance to the object, right? At least it's not, I don't feel like it's showing me the distance. I mean, I can turn the sensor back on. So the beep gets louder depending on how close you get. But in other cars that I've seen, they actually show you how far you are from the vehicle. And that's what I don't like. So normally would that be here. The other thing I find that is lacking about the parking system of the vehicle, I'm going to turn it off because that's annoying. The other thing I find that's lacking about the parking system on this vehicle is it only has rear sensors. And I know that is kind of a first world problem, I guess. But many cars now, many less expensive cars, have front and rear sensors. So I'm not going so far to say they need to have, the side sensors or front facing cameras, which many cars have, the front facing, rear facing, and the 360 cameras. But I'm saying that when you're going forward, so I put in forward gear, the camera sensor goes away, but it doesn't tell me how close I'm getting. So I'm gonna do a little test. As you can see, I'm going toward this car right here. I'm going toward the car, nothing. That's not good, because, you may be one of those folks who's accustomed to driving a car that has front and rear sensors, or you may be a new driver, and what you're gonna get is you're gonna bump folks. And the beauty of these sensors that they've created over the years is that I remember years ago when I first started driving in DC, everybody's bumpers would have like these tiny scratches on them. And there's tiny scratches in this area, Virginia, Maryland, and DC. They have front and rear license plates, and so they have those screws on them to keep the plates in. And if somebody bumped you a little bit, you would get a scratch on your bumper. Nowadays, people have sensors, and so you don't get these scratches on your bumpers. So front and rear sensors are actually really useful, and so that's the one thing I don't like. But I do like the fact that it's a nice clear screen, as you can see, and it does give you kind of the option to turn on the kind of the audible sensor that tells you you're getting closer. But to improve it, I would definitely put in front sensors. To really improve it, I would put in front cameras. But all those things cost more, and a lot of times people want just kind of what they need out of a car, not the kind of the nice to have. So that's a review of the parking system in the 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee.